Hello, I call this meeting to order at 6:31. We have three of us here tonight, Jack Nicolai, Steve Brown, and myself, Dana Powers. Administration present. We have the infamous Vicki King. Motion on the agenda. Anybody?
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead.
I move that we go into closed session in the middle school library pursuant to the following statute. Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And this will be a discussion about current building and district administration structures.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Jack?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Dana, aye, and we are enclosed. Shoot. Okay, we need to close
We need to
our,
order.
yes. I'll take a motion on closing the open meeting, adjourning the open meeting.
I move that we adjourn the special board meeting at 7:07 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Okay, I call this meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. We've got three of us here tonight, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, and Jack Nicolai. Members absent, we are missing Ted Gergen and Nick Poloni. Administration, we have Christy Weinstock, I'm so sorry. Vicki King and Marquez Guzman. There you go. Visitors, please make sure that you've signed in by the sheets over there. And I would like to welcome the Boy Scout troop to join us in, or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Mike Serta. I'm the Cut Master for Factory 28. Go ahead and say your name.
Grounds.
Go ahead.
Quinn. I'm Sean. Bennett. Adam.
Great. Scout salute. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the cutest. No. Why has it taken us this long to bring in?
Just lost half the crowd.
I know.
It's almost past the bedtime.
Oh, mine. Okay. I will take a motion on the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. My neck is just going to be so much less crinked tonight because I only got it. President's report. I do not have anything to report on tonight. Clerk.
I have one item, information about the upcoming election for the spring. There will be one 3-year position for election on the board for the 2023 spring election. That current seat is held by Dana Powers. The notice of school board election will be published in the Kenosha News and posted in the usual places in the area prior to the November 22nd, 2022 deadline. Declaration of candidacy papers can be picked up in the district administration office between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Declaration of candidacy papers must be returned to the district administration office by 5 p.m. on January 3rd, 2023. Deadline for incumbents wishing to file notice of non-candidacy is 5 p.m. on December 23rd, 2022. And finally, the date of the spring election is April 4th of 2023. If a primary is needed, which means there would be at least 3 people who would be filing, then the primary would be held on the election date of February 21st of 2023. That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you very much. CISA 2 update.
I have no report
Oh, perfect.
for
Okay.
tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Great. Treasurer's report.
Sure. So unless anybody else would like to present the reports, I will present them.
Please do.
So we'll start with the treasurer's report. Basically, I'm going to read the ending balance for each of our accounts. So the first account we have is the general fund cash account with a balance of $444,223.31. Credit card account with a balance of $37,340.28. The EBC Flex and HRA cash account with a balance of $12,000 $23.16. Capital Improvement Fund, Fund 46, with a balance of $30,520.35. Petty cash with a balance of $300. LGIP with a balance of $402,484.22. And WISC, which now houses the majority of our Fund 46, with a balance of $229,127.39, and that's a grand asset total of $24,216,018.71. And as I briefly mentioned, we did move the majority of our Fund 46 from our Community State Bank, the one that's called Capital Improvement Fund, and we moved it to WISC in order to take advantage of higher interest rates. And we're hoping that that move should result in estimating about $200,000 of extra interest this year.
Awesome.
So that should push our Fund 46 up to near the $5 million mark at the end of this fiscal year. So then I'm looking for a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
This is all in consent.
Oh, I forgot we switched to
That's
consent.
right. This
Okay.
is so
So now you
exciting.
just get to go to the next thing.
Perfect. Okay. And I should mention for the treasurer's report, we are nearing our low point for cash. So we know we're now into our third month of school, but we have yet to receive our property taxes yet. We don't start getting those till January. And we did get a partial state aid payment, but we've hardly gotten any revenue. We'll bring that up later on the revenue and expense report, but our cash balances are kind of hitting the low point. So.
Awesome.
And the state money normally comes in when?
So we get the first big portion comes in December, so that's coming up. But we'll already be even lower as we get into December, and then property taxes come in January. They come again in February. Then the next state aid comes in March. And so once we get to January, then we're kind of in a good spot for the rest of the year, and then until we get to November again, and that's our low point.
No.
So, payment of accounts payable bills. So I'd like to present the accounts payable bills dated October 1st through October 31st, 2022. And this includes checks numbered 71329 through 71452, checks numbered 2022-00236 through 2022-00411, and checks numbered 2223-00012 through 2233-00018, for a total of $804,434.24. Okay.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. And then we get to our monthly revenue and expense report. So you'll kind of see the difference between our revenues and our expenses. But at this point in the fiscal year, we have received a total of a little over 8% of our total revenues for the year, even though we're, in November, which our fiscal year starts July, and we're already in November. We've only received 8% of the revenue. As I had mentioned, we did get a little bit over $1 million in the state aid, but we still have yet to collect another $6 million in state aid, in addition to all of our property tax dollars. This is just Fund 10, by the way. So the revenue is up slightly compared to last year, and that's mainly as a result of, under the federal revenue, the 700 source number. We did get $97,000 from the governor the state gave the school districts a portion of their American Rescue Plan dollars. So every district got some money based on the number of students that they have, and we got $97,000. So that's the reason why we're up compared to last year. And then if we go to expenses, so we are, compared to our budget, we've spent 18.88% of our budget. So you can see the expenses have outpaced our revenue, and that's why we're at that low point in cash. Overall, the expenses are slightly higher compared to last year, and that's mainly due to salaries being higher than they were last year, health insurance being higher than it was the previous year, utilities are up, transportation is up. We've bought some new software programs that we're using this year. And then those air handling units were $200,000. Those were supposed to be done last year. They didn't get done until the summer. And that was a $200,000 expense that got booked this year. And the combination of all those is why our expenses are slightly higher compared to last year at this point. So
Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but you mentioned the insurance is higher this year?
Oh, health insurance. And so, yeah, I should point out that insurance on the 700 object level is our property insurance, our auto, our liability, and actually that insurance we got a slightly better rate. So last year we had spent 109,000. We got that reduced down to 92,000. So we saw a savings in our insurance by switching carriers.
To Geico.
Yeah, no.
So the numbers that you mentioned would be under benefits?
Yes, health insurance falls under our employee benefits under the 200 level.
Thank
So,
you.
Yep.
All right, I'm just going to bounce back so you can see what the motion is.
This is a good report. I know we said that before, but just, it's a good report.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna lose them all.
And the minutes. Okay, so what does
Oh,
a,
yeah.
oh, so we just make one
Motion?
motion on what then? Just a motion on the minute?
No,
Wait,
it should
how do we do
all
this?
be in there, and all of that is in there.
That's all, okay. Perfect. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm up. Okay, so public comments time. We have one written and then one in person here, so just, I'll read this one first. How about that? Okay, this is from Nicole Haas, 8650 226th Avenue, Salem, Wisconsin, 53168. Proposal for Citizens Advisory Committee. I would like to propose the creation of a Citizens Advisory Committee for Salem School District. The purpose of this committee is to increase partnership communication and collaboration between our school and our community. I strongly believe that in order to provide a sufficient and effective support and guidance to our school district, an active, organized role of our community is crucial in order to appropriately implement and manage our goals and objectives. The committee goals should include, but are not limited to, providing guidance that helps our district define solutions for day-to-day and end goal management and administration, including curriculum development. Offer a forum for community stakeholders to learn and provide feedback to current school, state, and federal policies and regulations. Offer a forum for community stakeholders to communicate their opinions and share their perspectives and expertise. Provide support that represents the interests of our community and students in conjunction with school staff and administration. Ideally, this committee would include representation from community members of special needs and mainstream students, as well as community members from different ethnic and/or socioeconomic backgrounds. Many members of our community are eager to begin a productive and structured relationship with our school board and administration. I hope you will take this proposal into consideration. Thank you for all of your hard work, Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. And then Nick, so you do have 3 minutes. I meant to ask you guys sooner if you could start like a timer or something that beeps so we know too. And just friendly reminder, no names, be respectful. Okay, perfect. And then just state your name and address, please.
Nicholas Drix, 8701 Antioch Road, Apartment 211, Salem, Wisconsin. Good evening. First off, I just wanted to apologize. I was mistaken in my impression that my daughter was asked through survey what gender she thinks she is. However, I believe you plan to do so. I do not believe that I am mistaken in stating that you did ask your 6th through 8th grade students to identify their gender by category. You clearly delineated an age group, suggesting to me that you think this question is not appropriate for all ages. I assert that it is not appropriate at any age and is outside of your educational mandate. Life and children are both beautiful and fragile gifts. They are your charge as well as parents in education and safety. Why do you think it is appropriate to introduce and cultivate ideology that is contradictory to a child's objective, natural self? I do not think you understand who you are working for in reinforcing this subversive ideology through your policy and action. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, action items.
Okay, so we have first reading considerations. We had a policy committee meeting in October and then another one earlier this month. And so I'm going to go through all of the policies that were described. And so just for, I have provided the actual changes, if any, that are in the policy in a little narrative right there, and I'll read through them just to keep it concise. Policy 100, which is definitions, it just provided clarification that a school official is someone employed by the administrator. Policy 161, parliamentary authority, it is not required for us to make any changes. So we didn't accept it because we are not looking to change the structure of the board. Again, for our awareness, anything in the 1000s is administration, 3000s professional staff, and 4000s represent support staff. And what I have done, instead of make several different slides, you'll see that it's the same policy, it just applies to those stakeholder groups. So policy 121, 1213, 3213, and 4213, student supervision and welfare. It was revised to account for staff posting photos of students of their own on social media. That was the only thing that was adjusted. It's just their own children. Policy 1421, 3121, and 4121. Criminal history record check and employee self-reporting. Employees are required to self-report infractions. However, they no longer need to report like minor traffic offenses and minor things. Policy 2260.02, services for bilingual students and English learners. We had our bilingual coordinator, Mari, help us ensure that we were within the guidelines. And so it's revised to meet our state and local codes and reflect what it is that Mari is doing for the process. And she's in compliance. Policy 2414, the human growth and development policy. The guidance allowed districts to add additional context to the policy. The only changes to our current policy is that we have added a portion to include puberty, pregnancy, parenting, body image, and gender stereotypes. There will also be an advisory committee developed when the curriculum about human growth and development is up for adoption. So anytime we have a curriculum, we'll have a committee per our admin guidelines to review all of that. But we did feel it was important that our students know what puberty looks like. Also, like healthy body image was important for us as well. And those are the only changes to that one. All right, policy 2460.03, independent educational evaluation. So this policy is revised to clarify when IEE is in excess of our district's allowable cost, which we currently have as $400. So what that means, if a cost for an outside evaluation exceeds that amount, the district must, without unnecessary delay, initiate a due process hearing to demonstrate the evaluation obtained by the parent did not meet the appropriate agency criteria. So for example, if a family member wants to go seek a second opinion or get an outside diagnosis, our current cost is $400. If we want to exceed that, there's a process that we have to make sure we go through, which is called due process. Policy 2522 for library media centers. This update allows the board to have the district administrator develop a process to respond to content within the libraries. And these would be content that parents may have an issue with. So the way it works is that the AG would follow the same as our current complaint process. And so initially you're going to start with the first line of contact, which would be the principal and or librarian, to see if there's a path forward on a one-to-one basis. Legal has made it clear that the goal is to seek a resolution on that one-on-one basis first. So that could look like, I just don't want my child checking out book X. So the book maybe is flagged in the students' their little notation that that's not a book that they can check out. That's not the first preference. Maybe it would be that the book then goes on a shelf behind the counter so that students can't just pick it up. Then let's say it's with still no resolution, the this parent or guardian wants the text completely removed from our library. So the process is to follow a written complaint with specific information about the concerning text. So it's very clear in this policy, and I'm only paraphrasing here now, but that the parent or guardian really needs to have a thorough understanding of why that information is so offensive to him or her. What they have found in other instances, the parent just didn't like the title or the picture, but they didn't know really the content. And so they, after reading through it, they realized that's not something I have a problem with. So the complaint has to be very specific. Then the committee, a committee consisting of a reading specialist, principal, a community rep, would review the concern and follow up with the district administrator. I would then follow up with the recommendation for the board at the following, whatever the consecutive board meeting was, and the final decision to maintain or remove the text would be in place for 3 years. The reason 3 years was suggested is because that would allow time for the student to have moved into a different library within the building so the text can go back. And also it doesn't make the parent have to, or guardian have to resubmit a complaint every single year. Okay. All right, again, so we've got the 3,000s for our professional staff, and the 4,000s for support staff. 2701, school performance and state ability accountability report cards. It was removed, the reference 8146. This was actually written in our policy, but we don't actually have that policy, so we took it out. So that's fun. All right, 3120.04 and 4120.04, employment of substitutes. So this ensures that we have reasonable assurances processed for unemployment compensation purposes. We already have this in place. The reason it's in here now is it was recommended before, and now they're strongly recommending it now, but Marquez had already put it in place before. 3425, 4425 for benefits. COBRA rights have been deleted out of these policies and they've been moved to the benefits policy. 5113 open enrollment program, inter-district. It's updated process for applications of siblings of students already identified in open enrollment. So the only change to this particular one is that it clarified, in fact, that we do allow siblings of students who are open enrolled. Policy 5340 is student accidents, illness, concussion, and sudden cardiac arrest. Wisconsin Act 210 is identified in the Wisconsin Statute 118.2935, includes cardiac arrest to be included in the notifications concerning concussions prior to athletic participation, just to ensure that both the athletic director and the coaches know that there may be something they need to pay attention to. Policy 5517.01 for bullying. Annual bullying report is an option, but it's still a part of DPI model. So they've taken it out as a requirement. DPI says it's still a model practice. We do it regardless. So we will have a bullying report to provide at the end of the year. Policy 8740, protection of district funds. The name of the policy was changed to better reflect the content of the policy.
Thank goodness.
And that is the conclusion for those for the first reading.
I would like to move to approve the first readings of volume 31.2 policy manual updates.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and while we had practiced this, it was recommended by the Neola group that we actually have a consent agenda policy. And so I'll just read what it says here as a policy consideration. We don't currently have it, but since we are practicing a consent agenda, this just puts it, solidifies it. So proposing that it would be the Board of Education shall use a consent agenda to keep routine matters within a reasonable time frame. The following routine business items may be included in a single resolution for consideration by the board. Minutes of prior meetings, bill for payments. And to that point, we don't actually need to even read any of the bills. We do, but if that's something at some point you're like, we've read through them and it's public, you don't have to read through all of them. staff considerations regarding hiring, resignation, and leaves, resolutions that require annual adoption, such as bank signatories, the Wisconsin High School Athletic Association memberships, etc. A member of the board may request any item to be removed from the consent resolution and defer it for a special action or more discussion, and more discussion. No vote of the board will be required to remove an item from the consent agenda. A single member's request shall cause it to be relocated as an action item eligible for discussion. Any item on the consent agenda may be removed and discussed as a non-action item or be deferred for further study and discussion at subsequent board meeting if the district administrator or any board member thinks the item requires further discussion.
Great.
Okay. And I have it on the next one for board. I should have been clear. The last policy and these next two we discussed in our November meeting because we wanted to make sure we had followed up. And there were some items that we weren't complete with. So policy 8510 on wellness, it has been updated to reflect that the Director of Student Services, Christy Weinstock, would ensure we are following the federal, state, and local requirements. It didn't have it listed as Director of Student Services, and that falls directly under her purview. And then policy 615001, non-resident tuition and enrollment. The change here that we are suggesting would be remove the class size table. We're gonna add a class size target to our admin guidelines and in other staffing ratios. So one of the things that we had currently in our policy, which it's not in any other policies, I started digging around, I'm becoming quite proficient at that, is our class sizes. It's not posted, we don't have to do that, and we are currently not actually following the policy as it's written anyway. So suggesting to move that out, and instead, part of our administrative guidelines is to create a ratio so that it gives, a range of students within class sizes. A smaller range at the younger ages is appropriate, and then the range gets a little larger as they matriculate. And then the other thing we're doing, just as a side note, to not necessarily this policy, but just as background, we are looking to create, we want to ensure that we have staffing ratios as we're starting to see out of our community engagement from the strategic plan, making sure that we have the right number of administrators to staff. So we don't have too many administrators or too few, and the correct amount of technology. So we're doing an audit right now with a lot of the surrounding districts. So we have more of a ratio, and that suggestion was provided to us from Ted as they use ratios in his district. Okay.
I move to approve the first readings of the consent agenda, wellness and non-resident tuition and enrollment policies.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Health insurance.
Health insurance, and for the first time in a long time, I've got good news. So Humana is our health insurance carrier. We started working with them last January. We had switched from United Healthcare or United UHC after they had given us a 40% increase, which was unheard of in my neck. I'd never heard of anything such a high increase. Humana came through and got us. It was still an increase over the previous year, but it was a tolerable increase. And I'm proud to report that this year we have a 4% decrease on our health insurance premiums. So we're actually, the health insurance premiums are going down.
It is.
I mean, 4% is not, an enormous number, but it's a slight decrease.
It's huge for us.
So, so for the first time in at least 3 years, we're looking to stay with the same health insurance carrier. So that 4% decrease is due in part to our high engagement in our wellness program. So it's called Go 365. Staff get points for, getting a certain number of steps, getting flu shots, doing sleep, keeping track of their sleep, and all sorts of things. And so when we moved to Humana last year, this Go 365 program came with some financial incentives. Not only can staff earn up to $300 per year in incentives through this program, and I actually got my new Apple Watch from getting my steps in this year, but the district can actually earn up to 5% of a discount on their renewal. So this year, Humana was going to give us a flat. They were going to keep it flat, but we actually had enough participation to get a 4% discount on our premium. I mean, that's a great job, but there's actually, we could still even earn another % discount if we get additional participation.
Wow.
So congrats to our staff for participating and getting that engagement high. The other thing we are looking to do this year is move to a short plan year. So we would like to move from, so we'd be moving to a short plan year from January 1st through August 31st, after which point we would start, our plan year would fall in line with the school year. So it would be September through August. And that comes with a lot of benefits for staff coming from other districts. They don't have to join us and pay potentially a deductible for 4 months and then start a new deductible over. It just syncs better with, also from a financial standpoint. Right now, we are just getting the health insurance renewal. We passed the budget last month. So moving forward, we'll know what our health insurance increase is so we can budget for it appropriately. And then we can also do, potentially do our staff negotiations on compensation earlier and also budget for that appropriately, because the last 2 years I've had to just estimate based on what I think the health insurance is going to be, what I think we can afford for the compensation. So this would allow us to kind of do those things, you know, in June, May, June, July, ready to go for the new school year.
And I think that's terrific. That's something we have been talking about for a number of years now, as far as changing that to the academic year, if you will, versus the calendar year. That's great. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
This rate is applying to the short plan year.
Yes.
Will that also apply to the next full year?
Yeah, so we will have a new health insurance renewal starting September 1st. So they will give us a renewal rate in May or June. So it's going to be a new rate, but we can still earn that 5% discount through the engagement in the Go Through 65. And hopefully, you know, their rates, their renewals are typically based on what they call their loss ratio. You know, they're estimating how much are we going to use the health insurance. If we don't use it as much as they estimate, then typically that's where we get the decrease or a flat amount. If we use more than what they estimate, that's typically where we got the increases. Salem, for the last couple of years, had exceeded that loss ratio, so the insurance companies were actually losing money, and that's why we got hit with those increases. So we will be looking at another renewal once we get to May, June. I'd bring that to the board, and again, we'd kind of look at it at that point. And I'm optimistic. I mean, I don't know if we can get another decrease, but at least keep it flat would be a win in my book.
So it's a good number, but it's only a 6-month good number.
9 months. It's or technically 8 months through August.
Yeah.
But we will get the renewal then in May or June, so that way we know what insurance company we're going with.
Hopefully we'll be able to do it again.
Yeah,
Good.
love it.
And then I do have the table up here that kind of showing the green is the current year that we're just wrapping up. Next month, December 31st is the end of that plan year, and then the blue is what we're projected to do. You can see that there is a 4% decrease across the board. So for our employees on a family plan, that's looking at a $10 decrease per month. Like I said, 4% is not that much. But our employees pay only 10% of the premium. For the district, though, that's a decrease of $90 per month. So then you would multiply that by 12 times the number of people on it.
And that's far better than 40% increase.
Correct. And you know, I think
I never thought of it that way.
we told our staff about the decrease last Friday at the in-service, and everybody was very happy about it. And, you know, some of them were like, I would have just been happy with a flat amount, no increase, but we got the decrease. So I'd like to stick with Humana if the board approves.
I move that we approve the health insurance renewal for the January 1st, 2023, August 31st, 2023 short plan year as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Nice job.
Yay.
All right, yeah, I mean,
So great.
yeah, hopefully we can keep it up again when we get the next renewal. So typically, at least the last, you know, I'm coming up on 2 years here, so I've only done this one other time. But last year we approved the health insurance, but then we also approved our HSA contribution last year, and then we also the next item will be the cash in lieu or health insurance waiver payment. So this year, we have started working with more strategy partners to better optimize our benefits from a tax perspective, but also ensuring our staff have, more financial security for the long term. And as part of that, Moore has helped us establish this VEBA trust, which functions a lot like an HSA, except that with an HSA, there's limits. With the VEBA, there is no limit. So that it's not tied to your health insurance plan year. It's not tied to any IRS contribution limits. The VEBA, though, is something that only the employer can contribute to, whereas the HSA, the employer can contribute and then the employee can contribute. So we are looking, instead of last year is the green, we offered an HSA contribution of $2,000 for people on the single health insurance plan and $4,000 for people on family or the employee plus one plan. This year we're looking to shift that into a VEBA contribution in the same exact amounts. The difference is with the VEBA now, that's an employee funded contribution. Staff still have their HSA that we've contributed to in the past. They still have access to that, and they can now contribute the full amount if they wanted. So somebody could now contribute to the federal max on their HSA, and the VEBA doesn't decrease the amount that they can contribute. So it does offer them additional options for what to do with their income.
Okay.
And then it does have the same uses as the HSA as well. So instead of contributing to the HSA, we are looking to contribute to the VEBA for the exact same amounts. And the VEBA contributions would begin in January, just like the HSAs would. So twice a month from January through May. So we spread it out over 10 payments and we make those contributions. And that's mainly from us from a cash perspective. We don't have the money to pay all of the VEBA contributions in January, so that's why we spread it out from January through May. And then the employees, like I mentioned, would still have the option to contribute to their HSA up to the annual contribution limit.
Are there any administrative costs?
There are. So Moore is kind of handling the administrative costs, but as part of our agreement, they have made sure that our administrative costs will not exceed the savings we're going to get from the next slide related to our cash in lieu or health insurance waiver payment. Okay. So we're going to end up not paying the FICA and the
Yes.
the FICA on the cash in lieu payment, but I'll get to that in the next slide.
Okay.
So from an employee perspective, these employees are getting the same amount with the same, just in a different type of account, and then they do have that flexibility of now increasing their HSA contribution if they want. So, and we did go over this at the in-service on Friday, kind of giving people a highlight, and then over the next 3 weeks, Moore will be meeting in small groups for some people if they want the small group, or one-on-one meetings to kind of go over the setup, trying to better optimize their benefits. So all staff have the option to do one-on-one meetings. Some can do the small group. We offer virtual sessions, phone calls, things outside of the school hours as well, and Moore is handling all of that.
Which I think we're gonna need to find a way to really PR that, because that's what we're about to roll out is a big deal for incentivizing people to come here.
Yep, we did go over that at the in-service on Friday, and it was generally positively received. I was happy that people seemed interested, engaged. We had lots of questions. As we answered people's questions, you could tell people were excited, or at least interested in looking into how to better optimize their benefits.
Good. That's great.
I move that we set the VEBA contribution, I motion that we set the VEBA contribution amounts for eligible employees at the $2,000, $4,000 amounts as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So the next item is the consideration of the waiver of insurance payment.
Did I not? I apologize.
no,
I switched pages, but I didn't.
So I've tried to do the same color scheme on the last couple of slides here, with
Thank you.
the green being the previous year, or the current year that we're just wrapping up, and the blue being the 2023 year. So historically, we've done a $5,000 cash in lieu or waiver of insurance payment. So employees who choose to waive the health insurance are offered this incentive, and it's prorated if necessary. So if somebody was on our insurance and then switches, we prorate it based on the amount of time of the school year that, so nobody's double dipping, so to speak. So employees who waive their health insurance coverage, they have to show that they have proof of other health insurance coverage, because that's part of the Affordable Care Act compliance. So we have to make sure that we aren't just, somebody's not just taking the money and not having any insurance at all. So they do have to show proof of insurance. So last year we approved a $5,000 cash contribution, and when I met with Moore, they kind of pointed out that that $5,000 is not actually going entirely to the employee, and actually it's also costing us more than $5,000 because we're paying FICA on that. So that's that federal, it's the Social Security and Medicare contribution of income. So the employees are also paying that FICA portion, but then they're also paying state income tax and federal income tax on that payment, to the tune where the average employee is getting $3,700 of the $5,000 payment, and we're actually paying $5,300. And so it's costing, we're paying more, and the employees are getting less. And so that's where Moore threw out the idea of actually shifting a portion of this waiver of insurance payment into the VEBA. So for this 2023 school year, we're looking at still giving our employees that $4,000 cash payment, because a lot of people, or some people, really count that money towards their salary. But also we're putting $1,000 into the VEBA to kind of help them plan for long-term health costs in the future, save them money on their FICA state and federal income tax, and also save us money on our FICA contribution. So now we're proposing doing the $4,000 cash contribution and a $1,000 VEBA contribution. The cash contribution typically occurs in December, right in time for the holidays, so people like that. And we split that up into two payments, a December payment and a June payment. So this would be $2,000 in December and $2,000 in June. And then the VEBA contribution would be in two $500 installments, the first one in January and the second one in June. And the reason why we also separate these payments is in case somebody leaves in the middle of the school year, we're not giving them all the money up front, and there is that incentive to make it through the end of the school year to get that. So it's the same total dollar amount, the $5,000 total, but our employees are actually going to keep more of that money because they're not going to get taxed on the VEBA portion, and we're actually going to spend slightly less because we're not paying the FICA on the $1,000 VEBA contribution.
That's awesome.
My problem kicked in again. VEBA?
VEBA stands for Voluntary Employee Benefit Association.
I have an acronym deficiency.
Yeah. I think it was first established in the 20s or 30s, mostly by the automakers, Ford, GM, as a way to kind of give them, I think it came up in part due to, there was like wage limits during the Great Depression, and it was a way for them to just kind of skirt that and make a contribution to the employee without it being counted as income. And so it's not very widely used, but there are some other districts in the state that do have the VEBA set up that have worked with Moore, and I had worked, New Berlin School District is an example. And so I called a bunch of these districts just to kind of see how it's going. They're a couple years in, making sure, I wasn't getting into something that employees didn't like. And once again, as we presented at the in-service on Friday, this was generally well received. And we actually had some employees request if they could get their whole waiver of insurance payment into the VEBA, so it's not taxed at all. And I was worried about the other perspective, people that wanted that cash, but some people, especially people closer to the retirement age, are like, I don't need the cash, I just want it more set up for long-term health care plans.
Can we do that?
So the way we have it presented, this would be kind of the standard, but I'm still working with Moore to figure out, can we allow them to do that? Okay. I guess if we could approve what's presented as the standard, but if allowable, we could allow people to shift it over. It would save us money, it would save them money. But I'm still looking into it, and I didn't get a response yet.
But if that were to occur, that would be an administrative function versus the board having to vote again on that.
Correct. Yeah, and it's still the $5,000 amount in total. There's no change in that.
I motion to set the waiver amount of $5,000 with $1,000 of that amount as a VEBA contribution as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just makes me excited. It really does. It's
a big
good,
deal.
good for staff, good for the district and our taxpayers. So, all right, so the next 5 slides, I'm going to be brief, but kind of give a high-level overview of what we're calling a continuum of care. Some districts call it a continuum of services. And I'm going to give some brief history and background, very, very brief, and then some of the desires that we have for our to support our students here. So a continuum of care or continuum of alternative placement for services, it really is generated, we call it the least restrictive to the most restrictive environment. And the least restrictive being in the gen ed classroom setting, and the most restrictive you can see on the slide being a potential hospital, residential facility, and outplacement is what some districts refer to it. And this really started, I was actually on a training call this afternoon for special education and discussing just like where the history came from, where free and appropriate public education started, even after Brown versus Board of Education, to have segregation abolished and have students more integrated. That still didn't cover students with special needs. They were still, many students didn't even have an opportunity to go into residential facilities. They were just not taught at all, and they were left at home. And so eventually law was passed to where now there's this continuum of services your schools ought to have. And that continuum could be a special education classroom, that could be a specialized school, could be homebound, and then you can see. The important thing to consider when we talk about one of the words that we throw around in special education is called FAPE. It's a free and appropriate public education. We want to ensure that all of our students have access to that. Our students, both with special needs, our students with 504, and quite honestly, all of our students. And we want to have it in the least restrictive environment. Well, what has happened from way back when, on that little brief history lesson, to now, people assume the least restrictive is always going to be in the general ed classroom. But if you look at what we have here in this quote, I'm going to read it. Placements on the continuum are genuinely deemed more restrictive the less they resemble the gen ed classroom. This does not mean, however, that placements closer to the gen ed setting are the least restrictive for all students with disabilities. And this is important to understand because if we don't have a continuum of services or a continuum of care, and we're just integrating students into our mainstreaming them into classes with students who are non-disabled is how the term that is used, but we don't have the support and structure for that student to be successful, that's actually not the least restrictive. And in some cases, we may have that there may be 3 or 4 adults with that one student in that one classroom. And that certainly isn't the least restrictive because we may be in the mainstream classroom, but the student is not being successful. So this is an important piece that I want us to keep in the back of our minds, because when we've looked at our continuum model here, I chose this graphic specifically because we've kind of done a shift. We used to have, kind of looking at our history, we had a lot of self-contained classrooms where that would be students were pulled out of the general education setting, students with special needs, and they were put into small groups. And in some cases, there may be students in small classrooms that could have been successful in a mainstream gen ed setting with a modification or accommodation by a teacher, perhaps a paraprofessional. There was also used to be a mindset of students can't do X, Y, and Z. And so that's why we moved them somewhere else. Or again, going back to the lack of data, there really wasn't decision rules to say the student is less successful at fewer than 40% of the time in the gen ed setting. We're just going to move them into a different setting that was just more subjective versus objective. Well, that was years and years ago. So that practice was a naughty practice, okay? But we did a whiplash in some of our cases to now we use language that students can do X, Y, and Z. Perhaps our mindset still might need a little bit of some work, but we're doing the best we can. But we don't have a lack of equitable CAP, which would be the continuum of alternate placement or continuum of care, is I am referring to it. I'm talking to our staff about a continuum of care next week. I'm meeting with every grade level between next week and December 2nd. We currently have still limited, consistent and reliable data. We have kind of fits and spurts of reviewing data for making decisions on why we're placing students in certain spots versus removing them, or the decision to keep them in certain settings. But we have a lack of specialized resources, whether it's staff or whether they're not trained necessarily in specialized programming, and our student support needs are not being met. So we've gone from one end where we were all pulled out of the classroom, to now they're all pushed in. And one of the history lessons as I'm talking with teachers is, so we've pushed, not in all cases, so I don't want it to sound like we're not doing everything right. We are very much doing what's right by students, but I do believe we could be doing better. But one of the things that I've heard is we've got students that are exhibiting, especially after the pandemic, some really intense externalizing needs. And even before the pandemic, though, we've had some of those students in the general ed setting, and the teacher is doing the best he or she can, trying to teach around something where the student may need some more specialized instruction related to social skills or life skills. We have students that would really benefit from learning how to wash and dry their clothes, make dinners and food. Certainly all of our students would, but we have some students that would really benefit from hands-on type of learning experiences like that, but we don't have the continuum of care. And so what I'm looking to do is have people consider a continuum of care for kids. It's rooted in meeting the needs of all of our students. It doesn't constitute a departure from equitable practices, which really is the least restrictive environment. We do want our students to be interacting with students who aren't receiving specialized services to the degree and extent that they can't. But we want to ensure that we're providing the continuum of care that's equitable. We have some staff that feel like if we're doing this, it's not necessarily equitable if they're not in the gen ed setting, where I'm trying to help people understand that those aren't binary, those aren't exclusive concepts. It's actually it's rooted in doing what's best for kids. And so what I'm considering, and I'm only letting you know informationally what I'll be talking to the staff about, and one of the things that Christy, the Director of Student Services, and I are doing is we are really looking to ensure that we're looking at a variety of data sets to identify students who would be best supported in potential portions of their day where they are receiving life skills lessons, where they are receiving maybe social stories on how to take turns with one another, instead of if they're escalated in a classroom, for example, and their behavior is such that they are throwing chairs or tearing things off of the walls. That's actually not only harming like the students around them, but that's the students also harming their ability to regulate, to feel safe in that space. And so having a setting for them to go to more equilibrium and learning how to identify. We've purchased some resources that it's called like we're looking at heart map, just to like help them identify their heart rate. A few weeks ago, we had a student, he was really, really amped up, and I just had him touch his heart, and I had him breathe and let him feel how his heart slows down when he's like taking some time to breathe. But we have students that we just push them right back in the gen ed setting without giving them the space and time to regulate. And then also that highly qualified specialist support. So we're working with some behavior specialists who are going to be meeting with staff to listen to some of the needs that they have. Right now, they're doing the best that they can, but they really need to know what tricks should they be trying? Is there something else they could be doing to better reach the needs of the students in their classroom? So we met with a behavior specialist this past week, and she'll be coming in. I've kind of set her some dates in January. Just December is just, we're gonna blink and it's gone. So looking at January, and then we also have a special ed specialist who is gonna do an audit of our continuum of services to see, and it's funny because she said, like, as she's working with more and more districts, that pendulum that I saw in the beginning where we did that whiplash, she said many districts did that because they didn't know that you could have a continuum of care because they just wanted to do, oh, the state, we don't want the state to be mad at us. Well, the state's not going to get, what we're doing right now is actually not servicing kids the best we can. So I am letting you know this because I'm going to be sharing this with the staff, and it's going to force us to be a little bit more agile and responsive, agile in the sense of how we're staffing our special ed department, and even our students who are in general education, they may need similarly resourced and classes. So how can I be creative with the staffing to ensure that all of our students are receiving a continuum of care, that it's not either you're in the general ed setting or we're suspending you, or general ed setting or we're sending you to another school completely. That may be something we need, but do we have a setting in school where we could also provide instruction?
I think this is an outstanding program and an outstanding way of dealing with these issues. How will parents be informed of this whole process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that part of this process, when I talk about decision, like the decision rules or criteria that we use, it's in the decision to identify students on where they go on this continuum. There is a case that was done that is actually used like it's a two-pronged test, and there's several questions that you have to go through before you identify, is this the right placement for students? So in that, you have conversations with families. They're very much a part of the journey of the student, and odds are some of our students, they are getting calls every single day, and they're at their wits' end because they feel like the school is failing them, because we're calling every day for behaviors that are they're dysregulated, and so we're suspending or we're sending to ISS or whatever it is. And so the parents are already informed. I think the relief will be when they finally hear, we have something in place for your student to learn those adaptive skills to be functional in society and in our classrooms. So that part of that, I didn't mean to kind of skip over it, but the continuum, like the decision rules for the continuum, there really is, it's it's not subjective, it's very objective. Did I say that right? Yep. On when we talk to families, have them come in, we want them to be a part of this conversation because that can only help better support the students.
And in this continuum, it doesn't necessarily fall under the umbrellas of either an IEP or a 504, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yep, we want it to ensure that it's, because sometimes we have people that say, well, they just need to go into special education. Well, no, there probably should be something before, like we failed somewhere, let's do something before that. And then I do believe, in addition to some of the things that Marquez says, I do think this will not only increase our open enrollment, because families will feel like their kids are safe here, psychologically safe, physically safe, all of them, because we have a continuum of care for everyone. But our staff will feel like they're getting the support from specialists, from administration, to support the students that they know need the most support, whether it's academically or behaviorally. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's all. Okay.
I couldn't stop following that thing. I was getting a headache.
You ready for a hypnosis over there?
No more vodka.
Go ahead.
I had requested the information item be put on the agenda with regards to the Citizens Advisory Committee. And this refers directly to an existing policy that we have, Policy 9140, that the board, as we have always been able to do, may establish a Citizens Advisory Committee, and that all appointments of staff members to the advisory committee should be made by the district administrator. Staff members to the committee shall never constitute more than a minority of any such committee. And then also that the board can be involved as ex officio members. And just for purposes of transparency, I've had discussions with a number of parents, with some parents in the district, including Nicole Haas. And so her presentation, or her written public comment, which I very much support. And this is something where in the creation of a Citizens Advisory Committee is something that could be a benefit to all students, all faculty, all parents and the entire community. So it's nothing new. It's been in our policy. I was just noticing here that the current policy was adopted back in 2005. That was a year after I had been on the board, and it was last revised back in 2018. It's an excellent policy. We have always followed it, and I would like to see us establish this CAC, if you will, and follow the guidelines as put into the policy. So, that's all.
I have absolutely no problem with this. I think it's great. I don't even think it's a concern. My only piece is I don't want this to take away from what we already have in place.
Sure.
Public comments, talking to the principal, going, up the chain of command. So that would be my concern.
Sure, and I agree with you 100%. This would never take the place of anything regarding that. I think having the opportunity for public comment and for parents and community members talking to our district administrator, talking to any staff member, any administrators, I think all that needs to stay in place, as you stated.
Great.
So I don't think that even needs it doesn't need a motion because it's already in place, and so and I think in reading what Nicole Haas wrote and what other people have said to me, it's all very much in line with our current policy.
Yeah.
So
Great.
very, very good. Thank you.
Eloquently presented, sir.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I was reading.
Okay, so I wrote myself a note because, so there is the WASB 2023 Delegate Assembly that from what I understand, you have experience in the process. I have a date to offer. That is Wednesday, the 18th of January at 1:30. I believe this is, do we want to send someone, correct? Yes. Okay.
I've gone before. I mean, I've done this before.
Do you want to say what it is? I don't actually know what it is.
Yeah, this is, there are a number of items that are put up for a vote by members of the Delegates Assembly. There are proposals. Some of them are off the wall, which never pass. It's a formal process of the WASB. It's an outstanding assembly because they have presentations for the 2 or 3 days. But this assembly is for the delegates only, and you don't have to register. I mean, you have to say who's going, who's representing the board if a board member goes. But it's not a 2 or 3 day thing unless someone wants to attend that. I've attended. One time I was also a presenter on something, but otherwise I attended as a delegate just for that afternoon, and it's very worthwhile.
I don't believe we have to send a delegate, so am I correct? We don't have to?
That's
Or
correct.
okay.
So I mean, if there's no one who wishes to attend, I can look at my plans, and I was just looking at my calendar. So
I'm
Go
in
get 'em,
full
pal.
support of that, Steve.
No.
Bring back cookies or chicken nuggets.
I will cookies
Or both.
and chicken fingers, right? That's what we used to talk about. Okay.
Very good.
Can't
Okay,
wait.
thank you.
All right. Finally, we have committee. I don't know if we need to go through the policy since I just did it all, but anything you want to
No.
add? Yeah.
Well, the policy and community relations, didn't we also discuss the naming of the,
That was building and grounds today.
Did you approve that? Wait, when do we talk about that? Oh, it's independent of.
I think you wanted to know whether or not.
we discussed it earlier today in a short meeting before the closed session about the request to have Deb Morgan's name put on there. And I don't know exactly the correct process to present this. We both agreed that it was a good idea.
I think what he was, what we had, I think we were gonna, at the beginning, you're gonna add this to the agenda to be approved, but we can add it to December.
Oh, shoot.
No, it's fine, we can,
Does that
or,
hold them up or anything?
no, or you can move to, the board can make decisions
Move
and,
to do it right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, why wait?
I
I
move
would
that,
agree.
I move that we address the issue of renaming the concession stand for Deb Morgan.
You don't think we can? I think we needed to add it to the agenda and then we could do it.
Yeah, because we did,
Shoot.
we approved the agenda.
Right, we already
You're right,
approved it
yeah.
on the consent agenda. Isn't that something that we could put on the December?
Yeah,
Would that be all
Yeah,
right?
I just know
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
anxious
but-
to
but
get
we
it.
would- And that'll be,
she'll just be excited to hear.
yeah, good.
Well, the committee approved it.
Right, exactly,
What are the
Hear what the
chances?
board will.
We recommend
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
right,
it's a done deal, yeah.
okay.
And we do not have a negotiations meeting set yet, right? We're still,
You'll
Trying.
probably get an email from Marquez for early December sometime.
December 20th at 7 PM is the next school board meeting. Jeez.
Right, and just so I'm clear, with the new process we're doing with consent agenda, for instance, the regular board minutes from October 25th has already been, right, okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Because I already signed it, I just wanted to make sure it was a legal signature. Diane, thank you.
I move to adjourn the meeting at 8:12 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.